All right. So I'm here to record a hopefully pretty quick little video here with my power rankings, which I realize I never posted, as well as a preview of the week one matchups for the LCS 2026 Split 1 lock-in tournament, is what they're calling it. So, as you can see on the screen here, I have my current power rankings for this first split of the LCS, and I am going to go through each of these teams and why I put them there. Some of it is based on what we saw last, some of it is based on what changes we saw, and some of it is kind of just based on vibes. I don't know every player, I don't know what's going to happen. And before I get started truly with the list, I just want to make sure uh, you know that this is my opinion. This is kind of just an unscripted analysis of the teams. I will also say that this is probably one of the hardest power rankings I've ever done. I've always done them privately in the past. This is my first kind of public power ranking, but man, it is hard to choose because every time I was like, well, if I put this team ahead, then that means are they really like better than the other team, you know? But I think I have some good power rankings here. Um, and I think I have some pretty interesting, surprising teams that I think will take it up in future splits. So, just another preliminary thing. I'm going to do a power ranking for all three splits, actually. So this is my split one power rankings. I'm going to do one for splits two and split three. So you can kind of see how I expect the teams to perform across the year. So let's get right into it here. Number one, I think Cloud9 is going to be the top number one team. I think they are going to win the LCS lock-in tournament, and I think they are going to go to first stand representing the LCS. You can see I have little taglines for each team as well. Cloud9's is most stable. I think they already had a great team, a great roster. I think they kind of fell apart, not due to the players, not really maybe due to the coaching, but kind of just due to the culture, maybe some burnout, maybe some internal issues we didn't really get to see. But I think bringing in APA is, I think, if nothing else, at least like a neutral change. I think they'll be able to contest just fine. I think they'll kind of keep their spot at the top. I think they are going to be one of the best teams that we have in the LCS at the start, and that's why I have them winning the LCS lock-in tournament. Right behind them will be Team Liquid. Number two, not quite able to make it there. I said they have the most potential because, in my mind, Yon is one of the best players in the LCS. I also think that Morgan can be good in the top lane. Jose Tioto is a big question mark for me, but I think Quid and Yon have enough to honestly beat out the rest of these teams and make sure that they can secure their place in high standings for LCS Split 1. Right behind them is Shopify, and obviously this is kind of one of the big signings of the offseason. They got Zinni, a very contested pickup from the LCKCL, and honestly, definitely an upgrade from Palafox. I do think that the hate on Palafox was a little overblown. I don't think Palafox was bad. I think that he did his job in the team. But I do think that Zinni is going to be able to do a lot more for this team. I do think it's going to be different. I think it's going to be a very different Shopify than we saw last split. I don't think they're going to mainly rely on, B-Voy doing his thing or necessarily like Fudge kind of playing well. I think Zinni is going to be a carry, if not the carry for the team. And I'm excited to see it. I do think that they are the most overhyped, which is what I put on there. I don't think Zinni is going to fix everything. I don't think Zinni is going to come in and be the best player in the league or the best player on the team or any of that. I do think that it's going to take them some time to be on top, where a lot of people are saying instant title contenders. I don't think so. I think they end around the third place mark for this first split. And then we have Lion. So the another one of the kind of the biggest moves of the offseason was inspired to Lion Gaming. I call them most tiltable. We saw how Inspired was acting in the FlyQuest documentary, and I think that with Saint, who also kind of tended to get a little tilted, at least it seemed in gameplay, I think they are the most tiltable team. I do think Dokla is going to help with that a lot. If Dokla sticks around for a little while, if those visa issues continue with Zamudo, maybe they keep kind of that chill 100 Thieves culture and get a little bit more done. But I think Inspired's going to want to grind. I think he's going to get mad if his team's not doing anything. He has Isles on support, which I don't think Isles is as bad as everyone's saying that he is. I do think he's kind of a middle of the pack, like fourth, fifth, sixth place support most of the time. Um, so I'm expecting some problems there, if nothing else than just in style of gameplay. But I think they do round out number four for this first LCS split. I can definitely see them beating all the other teams below them. Then we have FlyQuest, which is one of the youngest rosters in the LCS, and I dubbed the most hands. I think they are going to be able to outplay people. I think they are going to kind of be that 100 Thieves replacement, which is kind of funny, talking about Sentinels next. But I think FlyQuest is going to be that team that kind of just permafights. They find stuff, they fight over it, they figure it out, they fight and they die and they win all together. I think they are going to be a lot more exciting to watch than the FlyQuest last season. They were pretty slow and methodical, great mid games. I think this is going to be a we pick early game comps, we fight you, we stomp you, or we lose. And that's what I'm expecting from FlyQuest. I think they are going to round out fifth, but I think they will do some developing over the course of the year. And on to Sentinels, which I think is going to be the most fun team. Not necessarily to watch, but to follow, to listen to be a part of. Sentinels have already done a ton of amazing content pieces just leading into the split. And they even did one thing that I've already talked about in two different videos, which is the free jerseys for new fans if you wear TSM merchandise. I think that is so much fun. I think if they act like at all like I've seen them do with their Valorant team, this is going to be a very exciting team to follow, even though I do think they're going to land around the sixth place mark. I think Rahel is really good. I think keeping Huhi with him is also very good. I think Darkwings showed some promise and showed some willingness to pick creative champions, which I really like. I just think it's going to take them probably more than 1 year. I think they're going to be, spoiler alert, in the bottom of the standings for most of this year, and I think they're going to keep growing as time goes on. Which leads into Dignitas, which I said is the most underwhelming of the rosters. I don't see much to get excited for. I love FBI. I think Palafox over Toasty might have been a mistake. I think getting new faces in the league is very good. I think Palafox is good enough to be in this league. I don't see a team going very far with the roster that Dignitas has. That's basically all I really have to say about that. I think they are going to be better than Disguised, um, but probably not by much. And then there's Disguised in last place. They were kind of a perennial underdog team for most of the year in 2025, and I think it's going to kind of stay that way. Also, not much to say there. All right. So we have moved into split number 2. So this is our MSI representatives being, I think, Shopify and FlyQuest. And I'll kind of talk about these two in tandem. They are going to be who's representing us for MSI in 2026. I kept the taglines the same for these teams. But I do think that a lot will change throughout the year as they go on. So Shopify is going to grow into a little bit more of that team. I think Zinni is going to be a little bit more of that star carry in the split. And I think that they are going to take the title this time. And I think FlyQuest are going to be right behind them. If my meta predictions are at all accurate for what I think will happen for these splits, I think it's going to be a lot about fast-paced gameplay. I think it's going to be much easier to push with a lot of the minion and home guards changes and tower changes this year. And I think that's really going to lend itself to how Shopify and FlyQuest like to play the game. So I'm going all in. I'm going Team Green. I think that those two are going to be our most hyped teams in Split 2 of 2026. Moving on to kind of the next two, the Cloud9 and Team Liquids of this Split 2 power ranking. I think that these two teams kind of have a similar story. I think they're going to be a little bit stuck in the old ways of the game. I think they're going to be the ones who kind of play how they've always played, slow and steady, try to focus on team fights, try to focus on objectives. And I think if FlyQuest and Shopify, or not if, I think FlyQuest and Shopify are going to outpace them. And I think they're going to be able to essentially do more than them in the same amount of time, with their hands, with their pushing, with their kind of more simplistic macro. And I think it's going to be hard for them to deal with. Especially once that meta kind of forms. I think FlyQuest and Shopify are right to the top. And going number 5, I'll talk about Lion by themselves. I I debated putting them fourth. I even debated putting them third. But I think this is where the rubber really meets the road. I think this is where the tilt kicks in. I think that it's really hard for them to find consistency at this point in the game with their players. Maybe they have Zamudo back. Maybe Zamudo brings some new life into the team. I could see them going up to a third or fourth, but probably not higher than that. I think they still lose to the pacing of FlyQuest and Shopify. I think Inspired thrives when the game is slow, and I don't think it's going to be slow. Now, this one is actually interesting. As you can see, I flipped Dignitas and Sentinels here for these bottom 3 teams. I'll kind of talk about them together. The reason why I moved Dignitas up is because I think, same coach, think card for the NRG 2.0 roster, copycatting that previous team. I think they could get something done. I think they could get a little bit of that magic going, but I don't know. It's definitely not enough to beat any of the other 5 teams. I think those 5 are well above the bottom 3 here. Um, but I think Dignitas have enough strength to pull themselves in front of Sentinels. I think Sentinels is going to struggle at least a little bit. Like I said, I think they could move up, but definitely not this year. And Disguised, I had their tagline as most unpredictable. I just really don't know what to think about this team. Um, Sajed is a nice upgrade. Not necessarily upgrade, but nice prospect, and I think that'll be cool to see. But it's really hard to tell what's going to happen with most of those players. So they're going to stay at the bottom for now. As we move into split number 3 for the LCS power rankings. So here you can see a little bit of my bias comes in. I am a FlyQuest believer, and I think that not a lot changes here. Besides, I think FlyQuest and Shopify swap places. I think FlyQuest takes it over. I think they've developed enough. I think their coaching staff does what they did last year with that FlyQuest team and brings it into these rookies, and they're able to pull ahead of all the competition. I think our world's representatives are FlyQuest, Shopify, and Cloud9. I think Cloud9, being the most stable, is able to make worlds this year, which they notably haven't been the last couple years. And then honestly, I think the rest of it's the same. I think Liquid is middle of the pack. I think Lion is middle of the pack. You can swap those two if you want. I think Dignitas and Sentinels and Disguised might trade places, but I think those are all bottom 3. And obviously, I'm talking a little less about each of them as time goes forward, because this is when it's most uncertain. Is the further we get away, it's a little bit less clear what's going to happen if there are roster changes, if there are, visa issues that get resolved. Um, it's just hard to say. But this is my kind of final split 3 power rankings, my predictions for the year in the LCS for 2026. So now that we have the power rankings there for you, I wanted to take a look at the matchups for week 1 and ultimately my predictions for what I think is going to happen. And you might notice something funny here that was completely unintentional. But if you go back to my power rankings real quick, you can see I've actually paired the teams that play each other next week with each other in each of the 4 things. So FlyQuest plays Shopify. As you can see here, Cloud9 plays Team Liquid, Sentinels plays DSG, and Lion plays Dignitas. So they are all actually in order unintentionally with who they're going to be playing in week 1 on January 24th. So either way, let's get into this. I have a series prediction, and if you're unaware, it's going to be basically a small Swiss stage bracket for the lock-in tournament here. So these are all best of 3s. There are no more best of 1s at all in the LCS. Thank you, Mark Z. But first off, we have Cloud9 versus Team Liquid, and I think that Cloud9 is going to take this. I think it is going to be pretty close. I have Cloud9 taking it 2-1. My note that I made was that APA and Blabber will just kind of run these games. As for Liquid, I think that Yon does get ahead enough for them to win one game in this series, but I think they ultimately throw the other ones, kind of like we saw them do at Kespa Cup. The next matchup is Sentinels versus Disguised. I think this isn't really close. I think Sentinels have more stability than DSG does. I don't think they can really get their act together. I did say that Castle probably looks good though. That's kind of what we've seen him do on this team and on Immortals previously. So he's pretty good at looking good on losing teams. So that's kind of what I expect to see here. Then FlyQuest for Shopify. I actually have Shopify winning 2-1. I think FlyQuest does have enough hands to maybe take a game to throw some chaos in there, but I think they get out macroed pretty hard as teams are still adapting to the new patch. I said that Shopify will have some pretty solid and impressive gameplay. I also just personally think Contracts is going to look like a beast, one of my personal favorite players, so I think that he's going to be popping off week 1. Um, as for Lion versus Signitas, I think that Lion is going to take it 2-0. I think it's not going to be close. Dokeless here, that's going to be hype. Inspired versus versus XU should be pretty clear who has the advantage in that matchup. And I think it is going to be a pretty quick game. I said NRG 2.0 needs to find their footing. They really need to get some stability here if they want to really pose any sort of threat. But yeah, I think that Cloud9, Sentinels, Shopify, and Lion are going to be winning the week 1 matches. So that will set up some very interesting expectations if you have teams like Liquid, FlyQuest, and Disguised in the bottom bracket. Um, really interesting matchups could formulate if my predictions are correct. So to kind of wrap this video off, I just wanted to make this pretty quickly to give my thoughts and my predictions on the matchups. I think it's going to be really fun. I'm excited to watch these matchups. Um, Please make sure to stay tuned if you want to see more content. This is something I kind of threw together pretty quickly, but I wanted to kind of get my thoughts out there to let you guys know what I think is going to happen. But if you are interested at all in following the LCS, especially kind of my focus, which is content for new fans and trying to get people interested and engaged in LoL esports, please make sure to stick around, wait for more videos. I have lots of shorts coming out. I have lots more projects I'm working on. So stay tuned, and I'll catch you later.